Good evening, everyone. It's lovely to see those faces I can see and familiar names. Welcome, everybody, because this is about all life. So first, I'm going to open sacred space with the Tibetan bowl. And the way I think about it, sacred could have different meanings to different people, but the way I think about it is that we agree that in this particular hour, we're going to bring out the deepest and the best in ourselves. And if each of us does that, we help each other to create something even greater. So that's what I think of when I think of sacred space. So to open it. So our basic aim with Earthfire and the beloved animals and land we live on is the idea of helping us show up for life. That's the overarching theme of what we try to do, that we each show up for life. That does mean our life as well, by the way, because our life counts. We've been doing these conservation conversations for about a year. And this is the first one that we'll continue them the same way, but this is the first one that's also the beginning of something we're calling a Council of All Beings, which is a year-long program, which is going to have more than these conservation conversations that are part of it, but we're also going to have a live podcast. Like next week, we have a live podcast where you can listen in, me speaking with Dr. Linda Bender. So it's a whole program of the Council of All Beings. So this first one is to begin with, how do we tune in most to ourselves so that we can begin to contribute what it is that we have to offer and the joy that that brings to us. The idea of a Council of All Beings was started by a combination of a woman called Joanna Macy and also a woman called Dina Metzger. Her interview and podcast will be in our next newsletter. When I asked her about it, I said, who started this really? Joanna, no, I was there. But actually what it was is it came from the animals, is what she said. And as we go through the year, we'll be exploring how that seems to be happening more and more. It's the most fascinating thing. And you'll have an example a little later of how that's happening. And when we talk about Council of All Beings, what we mean is meeting in council with trees and rocks and river and mice and rabbits and lions and humans, as we are full members of life. And at the beginning, there's a little thing we have on our screen that says, if all life is sacred, how shall we live? That's a very nice reminder. I need to remind myself of it many times a day, because if all life is sacred, precious, whatever word you want to use, that affects everything we do. It affects what we eat, where we buy things, how we travel. It affects everything. How I relate to this piece of paper that I'm going to be reading from, that came from a living tree. It starts to change everything, but it changes it not just in a responsible way, so to speak, and it changes it in a really beautiful way, where we begin to connect rather than be disconnected. We begin to connect. Oh, that paper came from a living tree, tracing it back to where it actually came from. Oh, that rock, that living tree. I'm going to look at it differently if it's just a thing or if all life is sacred. So it begins to connect us up as we consider everything that's around us. And that has profound consequences. It begins to make us connected rather than disconnected, walking through nature, walking through anything without seeing anything or connecting to it, which is the fundamental source of our dis-ease, as far as I'm concerned anyway. So it's a profound question we can ask ourselves repeatedly. So today I was going to start with a little meditation to begin to think of a Council of All Beings. And also because we're all coming from different places, we're tired, we rush, etc. So let's settle in together to deeply discuss from our hearts what's most important to us. So picture this. We're in a forest together. We're sitting in a circle in a moonlit glade, watching the glowing embers of a small fire. You feel the damp earth beneath your feet, soft and yielding, full of life. You feel down beneath the living layers to the strength of bedrock, down, down, down to the center of the earth and her heartbeat. Grounded, held, safe. Light from the stars shine down on you. A gentle breeze caresses your face, bringing the scent of the forest, of pine and earth, and the breath of other living beings. A brook murmurs behind you as it flows to the sea. You tune to soft sounds of the night, the sigh of the wind, the rustle of leaves, the calls of a night bird. You're surrounded by living beings and their support. Let's explore together in safety, supported by the life around us. So if we're going to do a council of all beings, we need to always keep life in our mind, all life in our mind, and it eases us and soothes us and gives us wisdom. So the topic today is, how do we find our own path or our own unique purpose or our own path, because many people might follow a similar path, but it's going to be done our unique way. So I'm going to share a story with you of a woman called Jane, who I just spoke with recently. Someone had said, you might want to talk to her. She's had some interesting insights. Jane is a property manager in her 40s. And for some reason that she doesn't quite understand, decided to go to South Africa to study with a woman, a very famous woman called Anna Breitenbach, who studies animal communication. And part of the process of going, in order to prepare for this, it was recommended that she spend 20 minutes a day for 3 months before she went. And this she did faithfully. When she arrived there, she started to have these experiences. The first experience was in a horse barn. They were divided into 2 groups. And the horse barn was a barn of horses who were undergoing rehabilitation or had been rehabilitated. And the task was to see if you could find the source of the pain. And she found the source of pain in one horse, and later they discussed it, and it was true. But she kept feeling this tremendous pain in the back of her left shoulder blade, so much so she thought she'd pulled it or that she was sitting wrong or something. When she went out to discuss when everyone discussed it together, she said, I don't know where this came from. And it turned out that one of the horses from the other group had severe pain in their left shoulder blade, and she was picking up both. And she was kind of blown away to begin with because she'd never really done much of this before. And then they went out on safari, and she began to realize that she could tell in advance where the animals were going to be before we saw them. And again, she thought it was kind of weird, but she started timidly suggesting to the guide that there might be an animal over there if we looked with binoculars, or we might be coming up to one soon. And it would be true. He was very non-believing at first. At the end of the time that they spent together, he said, this is something that really seems to be true. At one point, she predicted, it's very rare to see a rhinoceros where they were, and she predicted that a rhinoceros was going to come and cross the road and stop for a moment and then continue. And that's what happened. So she came back in utter shock because her whole world was blown. She was a property manager. She was in her 40s. and began to think, as she was there speaking with the people on the safari or with the guide, some of whom were conservationists, she began to think, I have a really important job to do, because conservationists don't actually see the animals that they're serving. They see them as species. They don't actually see them with who they are. My job needs to be to begin to work with conservationists in order to be that nexus to try and shift how they're starting to see these animals. Another thing that happened was a bull elephant started to come up to the truck, and she'd be sending messages to the animals. You don't have to be afraid. We're not going to hurt you. And the guide said they'd never seen so many animals as when she was there. And then a bull elephant came up so close that people were getting nervous. But he was just very calm, and she got this message. She said hello, and he said hello back, in effect, and gave her information that he served as a scout. He was on the outside of the herd because he was always looking out for danger. And the guide was pretty impressed by that, saying, you don't find that kind of knowledge in books. But the upshot of it was, when I spoke with her, which was recently, she was, as I said, in a state of utter shock. What's she going to do now? She was thinking about going to get her PhD. My comment was, by the time you get your PhD, do you know how many more species are going to have disappeared? And she wrote back saying, you're right. And so now she's going to start this work. So from listening to herself in some way that she needed to go to take this course, to preparing for it for 3 months by being quiet 20 minutes a day. It's just 20 minutes a day in nature. She said she really believed that's what set her up to be so responsive when she got there. But the end result of it is, as I said, is that this woman has now found her path. Not that other people won't do the same. Other people might also work with conservationists. We will at Earthfire, but that's her path. And she's nervous and excited. A totally different variation of that story is Cucumber the wolf, who I might have spoken to you about before, and she's also on the website. And how Cucumber, after a near-death experience, and she wanted nothing to do with people, shifted and became connected to people. And not only did she become connected to people, she actually became our best ambassador, to the point that we could let her be with little kids. There was no danger at all. She was just softness and connecting. And if you read the story, basically, she said, this is my job now. She owned what happened to her, and she owned the job and took it over. So the last several years of her life, she was this phenomenal ambassador, and she'd never been interested in people at all. So it's just an interesting comparison. In her case, it took something dramatic like a near-death experience to break through, to become to do this shift in perspective. But she shifted perspective from I'm a wolf who needs to be a queen in my pack, and I need to procreate. It's all just wolf perspective into a much larger perspective of how she would be in the world and her gift and contribution to the world. And she's still giving through her stories and through her impact on people. Though she's passed away at the age of 13 some time ago. This is her role. Both of these creatures, the human and the wolf, became more connected. And if we sit with ourselves and we're connected to the earth and we're connected to the heavens and we're connected to ourselves, we begin to become almost like an antenna where things can flow through us and we can receive them. And what fits us and our own unique self will stay and resonate with us, and we can begin to grow from that. I spoke with a woman called Linda Bender the other day, actually the one who we'll be doing a live conversation with on Tuesday. She's a wildlife vet, and she's got a wonderful perspective on how come she became a wildlife vet. How did she find her path? She found her path very early in her backyard. but she'll be speaking about that then. But what she shared most was, among other things, was if you're quiet, you get invited into that world. And then all these magical, quote unquote, magical things happen. You slip outside your conceptual thinking and you allow. And as we work to discover our own path, what really counts is where we are tuned, almost like a radio dial. We can be tuned to noise or computers or worry or inner stress or things like that. Or we can tune to something larger and more beautiful, like Jane did. And if we change the radio dial and tune, then that's what comes in. And that's what comes in, and then it resonates with the best in us, and we find our way. It's waiting for us. So the question we started today with was, what enlivens your soul? What makes it sing? So I would like to open the conversation soon and ask each of you who feel comfortable doing it. Chelsea was going to be mean and say we're going to ask every single person in a circle so nobody can get away with it, but I'm going to be nicer and say, take a couple of minutes to feel deeply. Maybe it's really easy for some of you and maybe very difficult for others. And for those of you who share it more easily, it might help awaken something in others. So I would ask you not to be afraid, because it's important that you share yourself in this group and then in the world, and here it's safe. So I'd ask you, what enlivens your soul? What makes it sing? And the question after that, if we want to get to it, is, so how do we make that happen in our life? How do we have more of that in our life? So at this point, I'd like to open the circle. And first, see if people have an answer to that. When we're finished with that, then it's open to any comments, thoughts you'd like to share in response to what I said.
Thank you, Susan. And we'll wait. Should I give the 2 minutes to kind of contemplate, or should I give the spiel?
You know what? I'm going to ask you to tune into yourself and make that decision.
Mm-hmm. I think I'll wait 2 minutes and everyone ponder that thought, and then I'll say how you can unmute.
Well, 1 minute. So I'm going to start with what enlivens mine. And that is beauty wherever I find it, in nature, in a beautiful soul showing itself. And then what enlivens my soul even more is to share it. That's why I do this.
All right. And now I am looking forward, as we all are, to hearing from all of you. So you all will now have the ability to unmute yourselves. And I know that it is not possible for people who are joining us on the telephone to unmute themselves. So I just want to let everyone know that I will find a time to do that, so you may share, because we would love to hear from you all as well. But for those of you who do have the Zoom application, you can just unmute yourself by that little microphone on the left-hand corner. Again, please introduce yourself and where you're from, and please be respectful with the topic and time, but hopefully you've all are eager to share, as we're all eager to hear from you. Okay.
What makes my life sing? Hi, I'm Maggie Davis in Maine. What makes my life sing is story, and stories of compassion, stories of courage, one-to-one stories. When I listen to the radio, if I'm not hearing story, if I'm hearing generalities, if I'm hearing categories, I feel myself, I don't mean to do it, but I feel the energy drain from that. So when I hear stories, I'm excited, and I put that into action by doing an interview project for people who have fostered or adopted or rescued animals of any kind on earth at all, and want to tell those stories. I also sing to and resonate with stories of people who are not necessarily well known at all. People who, by connecting even in what others would call a small way to an animal, whatever animal that is on the planet or a person, is sending out something that we can't even imagine by their tiny little story. And I find, to echo Susan's comment about beauty, I find great beauty in that. Many years ago, I realized that that it wasn't, well, let me give you an example. That I think of a woman, a super mom, because a number of years ago, I and other people I know were considered super moms. We were in our 20s or whatever. And I kept thinking, well, what if something happened to one of us? What if we were one day a super mom and the next day a quadriplegic, God forbid? Would that make us any less in the world? And how would it not make us any less? And so that got me thinking more and more about the smallest thing that we can do can still have power. And that is a way also, I think, of empowering young people. That, for example, let's say there's a young person in a family, and the person, the head of the family, chains a dog outside, for example. I'm sorry, Susan, were you going to say something?
I'm thinking let's stick with what makes our heart sing rather than. Okay.
Well, that's what makes my heart sing.
Okay.
That one person can have such power doing the smallest thing, and that to teach children that they can have tremendous power by doing the smallest thing. If there's a dog chained in their backyard and they had no power to unchain that dog, if they could have a relationship with that dog and connect with that dog and make that one dog feel better, then that, for that child to understand that it was great power in them and had great value, I think a lot of people would feel less helpless and vulnerable.
Thank you, Maggie. Yeah, the power of story and the power of one, I think, are what create an orchestra, really, of voices.
I'm Cindy. Can you hear me? Cindy?
Yes.
Hi, Cindy in
Yes, it is.
Montana.
Hi,
And
Cindy.
hi, hi. And what makes my soul sing is the absolute beauty and wonder of Earth and all the inhabitants and all the non-living. And so it's a broad category or a broad love of beauty that makes my soul sing and my life look like it goes in many directions.
And you incorporate that in your life?
I do. My actions have had a lot of different outpicturings. So yes, I do. You want me to say more? I was giving people space.
It's up to you. If you have a burning passion to say more, that's fine, or you can give people space. It's up to you.
Well, my deepest love is being in nature, being with life, and I share the all life is sacred and how that changes my life. But sometimes having this broader view of passion for Earth in general, I end up called into something else. Right now, we're they're trying to keep a water bottling factory from being built right next to us out in the country. So that doesn't look anything like loving nature, but it is because I'm devoted to water. So that's my piece.
And do we even need bottled water is a whole other question.
We don't need bottled water unless you live somewhere where there's no water and no one has figured out a better way to get it to you. This is my bias. I wanted to, I'll share my little thing on plastic. I think of plastic as sacred ancient dinosaurs. It doesn't mean we need more, but whenever I'm touching it, it's like, oh, sacred ancient dinosaurs.
Thank you for that.
Joan, would you like to share?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Joan, and I am from Washington, D.C. And for the past 13 years, I have lived a plant-based diet. I'm a vegan, a long-time vegan. And what makes my heart sing is there is a farm animal sanctuary about an hour from where I live. And I go out there once or twice a month and I help with the farm chores and the animal chores. And it's just what makes my heart sing is to see these beautiful animals, farm animals that were neglected and abused, get to live out their lives on this beautiful 400-acre property, just surrounded by nature, and how each one of them have amazing personalities. It's just interesting to see each of their personalities come out when humans are around, and how grateful and thankful they are that they get to live out their lives.
So how often do you go out?
Once or twice a month I go out there. And it's amazing how, and I guess in part is because of the way they're bred, but how large some of the animals become when with all due respect, they don't end up on someone's breakfast or dinner plate. How large the cows grow. A lot of the chickens were rescued broiler chickens, and unfortunately they only live to be about 18 months, but it's just interesting to see how large they grow in a short period of time.
The reason that I asked
Yes.
is a gentle nudge The first thing is what makes our hearts sing. And the second is how can we incorporate it more into our lives? The reason being, what makes a heart sing is really our soul's purpose. And plastic water bottles, to stop that, because we'll make a huge difference on life, on the planet with the plastic pollution. So what I would like to encourage everyone to think about with this is not just what makes our hearts sing, but then how do we actually make that first a part of our life, and then if at all practical, and it's amazing what can become practical if we really get passionate about something, to make it more of our life. And more, and more. This poor woman, Jane, who's going to give up being a property manager so she can commune with animals and conservationists. So always when we're talking here, we're moving towards what feels right for us and then doing something more about it.
Okay, thank you for that. If I had my way, I would work with the animals full time and just be around the animals and nature and helping them out.
Well, and I think it's beautiful to dedicate what we can. I think it's important to always know that what we do give is so valuable, and it's never small. It is always big and valuable. So
Yeah.
that's beautiful. I see some other people who have unmuted themselves and not shared. Would anyone like to?
Do I just go?
Yes.
Okay.
You do.
Okay. What makes my heart sing?
And your name?
Val, sorry.
Yeah, okay.
Valerie from
Hi.
Victoria, BC, Canada. And I feel a little bit conflicted in that part of what makes my heart sing is quite cognitive. It's in my brain. And because I taught for 31 years, I think I am in my head quite a bit. And part is with my dog, following little rabbit trails in the forest. So I will tell you what makes my heart sing. That is mostly what I do with people, and it is connected with what I do with animals. Because I think that's true. I think this is true. What makes my heart sing is the new story of the universe that is beyond anything that a religious tradition could provide, and that I think the planet is hungry for. I was listening to a presentation yesterday by Brian Schwimm, who worked with Thomas Berry and Joanna Macy, all of that eco-psychology. He's a physicist. He's incredibly charismatic. And he was talking about how extinction was not even understood as a concept until very recently. That even in the time of Thomas Jefferson, when dinosaur bones were found, they thought they could maybe find a dinosaur. Mm-hmm. And that is how young the human species is. We are so young. And I think generally speaking, we're still stuck at somewhat of an adolescent level, particularly in our government leaders. And the reason that this really makes my heart sing is because the new story of the universe is shown by science to be true at the very tiniest levels of atoms and particles and the very biggest level of the universe, and how the universe came to evolve into what she is now, and how we came to evolve into what we are now, and that our place is to bring that new story forth to meet the longing that there is in people, in human beings, and that everything really is connected. Animals are not just a population or just an economy. They're not to be extracted. They're not resources. They're individuals with personalities and a life that they value just because it's important for itself. And I am working with a group, and just today connected with another group. And I feel like the synchronicity of all of this is heating up the same way the planet is heating up. I feel like this climate change that's happening, everything is going faster. Molecules are going faster in our bodies and in the universe, in our sun heating up. Everything is going faster, and circles are really starting to overlap. So I see great potential happening in what Margaret Wheatley would call islands of sanity. I want to be part of islands of sanity that then connect with one another. And I want to see Tanaka again.
Okay. Wasn't he stunning?
Oh, I've told so many people about her. Him, sorry.
He's a handsome boy.
Yeehaw. Aho.
My name is Dawn, and can you guys hear me?
We can barely hear you.
Okay. Yeah. I'll see if I can speak up. Is that better?
That's a little better.
I'm at work, so. Anyway, I'm a writer, and I get to write about musicians and songs that inspire, and also about the place that I work. But what really makes or enlivens my soul is praying with people, praying for God's creatures. I love it when a story that I feel like I've written in agreement with the person who created that song impacts others. And I'm looking at my life for the future, for when I retire, and how I can impact wildlife and possibly go to Anna's. I heard a lot about Anna and possibly get involved with that. I love it when I get to go and interact with others and with my daughters. I love it when I'm in community, and it includes wildlife. So that's what makes my heart sing.
Thank you for sharing, Dawn. One of the themes I think I hear and also mirror in what makes my heart sing is connection, and a really deep, visceral connection, one that I think I feel before I can even label. It doesn't have to be. It can be, with one individual being, human, non-human, plant, animal, anything. But it can also be with water and soil, and just anything that deep connection, and it runs through my veins. And that's what really makes my heart sing. And that's what's inspired me to work in conservation, is tasting that connection and knowing that it's possible for all of us to get on that wavelength, and hoping that we all can, and move and work from a place from that connection. And that's what inspires me.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. For me, I think what enlivens my soul is creation. Whether I'm writing, whether I'm baking, whether I'm working in my garden, my husband and I like to landscape, just the act of creation very much enlivens my soul. But I think that with it comes a certain amount of responsibility, that you do utilize it to hopefully broaden perspectives. If you can show somebody how you see something, not necessarily to make them have the same thought, but to open them to a broader perspective. And I think that music and art and everything that we create does that naturally. And I think that if you're an artist of any kind, with that ability comes the responsibility to try to broaden every conversation that you can possibly affect. So that's what enlivens my soul.
That's wonderful, Hope. Every conversation that you engage in.
I think what weaves through all of this is wonder. The more things that we can experience and that we find joy in, we find wonder in, and that takes us away from ourselves and out into the entire universe, and eventually nothing is left out. It's just all connection, all wonder. And when that happens, how do we treat anything then but beautifully? So some of us do very specific things. Some of us try to inspire others by the way we live in that area. But for me, the idea that nobody excludes anybody or anything or any rock or any tree or anything eventually can only lead to what we're hoping for.
Thank you, Maggie. I would love to encourage, we have a phone caller that maybe wants to speak.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My name is Jackie, and I'm from Big Sur, California. And I'm, thank you for having this, but you're talking about what makes your heart sing, and I'm going to kind of continue with what others were adding, and it is that interconnectedness of all things, all beings. And like you said earlier, Susan, the water, the rocks, every animal, every being, every human being, every animal being. And what makes my heart sing is getting quiet and deeply listening to all of it. And this kind of goes on to the next part of your question: how do we bring that out into the world? And it goes hand in hand with action. Is that when we silence and quiet the mind, the longing of the heart emerges, and you get to hear it in ways beyond the ears, and in really rich and kind of layered ways that surpass language. And I really love just listening. Thank you.
That was beautifully said.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Kelly, and I live up in Northern California in the Redwoods. And what makes my heart sing is a lot. It's very simple, but anytime I see a cat, it just makes me so happy. But also being allowed to be seen when wildlife, any creature, allows me to see it and recognizes that I also see it, and there's a sense of connection and communion. So there is definitely a lot of similarities that our people are saying, but also not just the physical being, connecting with the spirits of animals and the spirits of place, and listening to the trees and playing with the elements in sacred space. And I recently started doing a lot of plant medicine, making essential oils with trees and working with mountains, and just the whole symphony of nature, and just playing in that in a sacred way, in an honoring and respectful, loving way. That makes my heart sing.
Well, I'll speak up now if you let me.
Please do.
Okay. I'm Joanne. I'm in Glendale, Arizona. And what makes my heart sing is very similar to everybody else. I enjoy being out in nature and in the sunshine, connected to all life out there. I consider Mother Earth being, and that she has her growth and that we're all along with her, everything on her. I connect to her as my mother, and I try and capture nature through pictures. So I have a lot of nature photography, whether it be the rocks or it be the birds flying, everything in between. And I share that, and I like to inform people. I like to inform and share information about what the animals are, how they live, what they mean spiritually, and also inform people of what's happening to them. That's what I like to do.
Mm. It's so beautiful because when you take a photograph and you're connecting with the camera to the soul of that being. To some degree, that being is being seen, and how important that is to be seen.
They always see me too.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Thank you so much to everyone who has shared. It's been so lovely hearing from a lot of new voices tonight. As promised, it seems like a lot of you have been able to unmute yourself who's on the phone, but I do want to offer that for those of you who might not all be able to. So I'm going to click unmute all, and I do ask that if you aren't going to speak or if you have background noise that you go ahead and mute yourself again, but I will offer that to those on the phone.
Hi there, my name's Mary Lynn, and
Hi.
I live in Jackson, Wyoming. And something very unusual happened to me right when I came home before I joined the conversation, and I just want to share that this evening. But there's been a little, doe deer that's been around my house a lot this winter and been enjoying her company. And she came again to my house this evening and laid down, and she has passed away.
Oh.
I know, it's just very touching. So while you guys were speaking earlier, I did a little smudging and some prayers for her and stuff, but I have no idea why she died or anything, but I've never had that happen to me before. Have a wild animal come and pass away right by your house,
Oh.
So if everyone could just say a little prayer for her, that would be wonderful.
Mm.
Absolutely.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to share with what you were sharing about the little doe that she brought you a gift, which you may know. Yes, she brought you the gift of her life as a message for you. And there's a book called Animals Speak by Ted Andrews. You may want to look up deer and see,
Yeah.
You know about that. Yeah.
Yes.
But I think if we hold what your experience was beyond the physical and take it to where she now is in the light, you may get some answers and you may hear from her, and you could ask her, why she decided to choose your home to give of her life,
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I think that's very beautiful. A very special connection between the two of you. Did you want to say more about that?
No, I'm good for right now. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you
you.
for sharing that about the deer. It was very, very beautiful.
Yes. So my name is Lynn, and I have been an animal rights activist for many, many, many years, and have taken my animal rights activism on the road this past summer in working with a lot of the major animal rights organizations in California and Virginia. And what I've discovered, to my huge disappointment, is that, and I was talking with a member of the staff about this, that though the work they are doing is powerful, extraordinary, wonderful, they don't see the spiritual component to the work that they're trying to do for and with the animals. They see the paperwork, writing to their Congress people, holding meetings, doing rescues, but it needs to be much further than that, because if we bring the spiritual in, we'll move much faster with a lot of these major animal rights issues on the planet, like what happens every year in Yulin, China, with the Dog Meat Festival. And to speak about that, one of the speakers who won an award at a huge animal gathering, a fundraiser, is named Mark Ching, and he's the founder of Animal Hope and Wellness. He's the 4th generation healer. And he said that when he works in Yulin, China, in these conditions we can't even imagine, he goes up to each and every animal and he whispers in their ear, if you can make it, you will have a home, a family, and love. And I just felt that was so touching and extraordinary, and I'm sure that that brought many animals through the physical crisis that they were in. I also want to share that I had the opportunity in Los Angeles to meet the trucks that come in from all over the United States with pigs, 4 layers of 6-month-old pigs that are headed into Farmer John's slaughterhouse. I come from a Holocaust family, and in the slaughterhouse, we could see from the road was a crematorium, and the smoke was billowing out. And the horror, the recognition that what is happening to these sentient beings happened in World War II.
Lynn,
so, yes.
Could I just jump in here? And while
Sure.
I think it's such a impactful story, I do just want to remind us that we would love to hear what it sounds like. Maybe activism is what makes your heart sing.
Yes.
But just to bring us just to back, but it sounds like maybe you're going from a place of what breaks your heart the most, which is what Andrew Harvey suggests. There's always multiple ways to look at it, but we'd love to hear what makes your heart sing.
Thank you. Right. What makes my heart sing is the light. It's been called the light for the highest good of all concerned. And I live by the light, and with my 3 kitties, if they're not feeling well, I bring the light into their physical forms. And I believe the light is the next step that moves in my heart. It motivates me. And I have seen miracles happen using the light. I've seen dead birds in the street become alive by suggesting the presence of the light. I think this is an extremely powerful tool that we all have access to, but our conditioning doesn't permit us to know what we know. And I think that light lives within us. the light makes my heart sing, and it takes me all around the world for animal rights and for amazing experiences of travel. So
Thank you for that. At
Thank
another
you.
time, I'd love to hear some of those experiences.
Yeah,
Oh.
thank you so much. Because
I
I'm
wanted to-
getting,
I
I was just gonna mute everyone because I'm getting a lot of
Okay,
background.
fine. Yeah,
If that's all right.
yeah,
And we're almost at the hour.
we are.
Okay.
One of the reasons I wanted to bring this topic up of what makes our hearts sing is for us to pay attention to it and to realize that that's what's really the most important thing in our lives. And therefore, how can we begin to make it more of our lives? Like I hassled a poor person earlier about this, about going to see the farm animals. I think, as Chelsea said, Maggie, any small thing we do has tremendous power. But that's separate from the idea that each of us has, we can add that more into our lives. Think about that. Meditate on it, wallow in the idea that it might actually be possible to add more of that quality into our lives. And what that does then is help all life. It helps us and it helps all life. We might end up opening a new farm sanctuary, or we might just be walking light itself, helping other people see that there is light in the darkness. Whatever it is, not just to have a side issue in our lives, what makes our hearts sing. And some haven't, like Maggie lives it, for example. But not to have it be a side issue, but to really allow the joyous, fantastic ability that we actually might be able to be a little scary, but maybe we could actually shift into doing what makes our hearts sing more. And what a contribution that is. So that was my last comment.
And that's a beautiful closing statement. We are at the hour. Susan, did you want to go ahead and close the sacred space before I make some announcements?
Yeah, I think what we're going to do is we promised an hour. Close the sacred space, just so for those of you who can't stay. And then it is open for those of you who have asked to stay longer. We will be open for another half hour for general conversation. But for those of you who can't stay, here we go. May you go well till we meet again.
Yes, thank you so much for everyone who joined us tonight. As Susan said, we will stay on for up to an additional 30 minutes for those of you who would like to continue. But for those of you who have to go, your presence is warmly appreciated. So this conversation is recorded and will be put on our website. But if you don't receive our newsletters, do sign up for that, and then you'll have them sent through email. And I will also send out an email with any resources that we talked about. So thank you very much. And we'll see you next time at our conversation in May, which is the third Wednesday, so May 16th.
So is the floor now open for conversation?
I have some comments.
Please.
This is Lucinda Abbey in Jackson Hole.
Hi, Lucinda.
Hi, Susan. And when you said, what makes your heart sing? I just looked back on my day. And I remember I was taking a walk outside and busy looking at some birds and beautiful eagle. And then out of the corner of my ear, I heard some sandhill cranes. And I thought, well, they're too far away to see. But when we got around the corner, I could see them about 5 miles away. And that's an unusual amount of distance to also be able to hear them. And they were just taking off over the mountains. So it made my heart sing to see the animals, see the birds, to hear them, and then to be able to share with James, my partner, oh, here, you take the binoculars and look. And then when you started to say what you enjoyed doing, it was to see the beauty and then to share it. And then someone else said the exact same thing. And I thought, I feel really connected to all the people on this call. And that made my heart sing, especially when I heard that someone's from Arizona and someone's from Northern California. I thought, well, I'd like to get in a car and drive around and see all these wonderful people, because it makes my heart sing to feel connected to people that are, that I can share these beautiful experiences with. So it seemed like that was a theme that kept coming up again.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Lucinda. And you bring up such a lovely point that I think we all should reflect on, is the idea of asking ourselves that daily. What makes our heart sing?
Yeah.
I'm sure something new would come up every day, and it allows us to maybe open to appreciation a little more.
Well, another fun thing to do is I started to think, well, what made my heart sing? Oops, sorry.
I just went ahead and muted you. Sorry. But unmute yourself. Okay.
I forgot that my phone rings on the computer. I muted my phone, but the phone rings on the computer. That fun to go back then and think, well, what makes my heart sing, not just today at that moment at 10 a.m. or whatever it was, but in my life as the year. But then also to look and see how that's things that made my heart sing when I was a teenager or in my 20s or 30s, and see that continue in my life. And I think that the people on the conversation here had similar, you know, if we ask that question, it would be similar, that these are things that have lasted through our lives. This something that you felt when you were 3 years old, or, you know, 8 years old. So I love that. And the phone call was coming from someone else who was on the phone call and just hung up, my friend Mary Lynn. So that's funny.
In a way, what makes our heart sing when we're 3 comes from the depth of us before we've been shaped too much by other forces.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore, it's a really great place to go back and think about if we lost a way or need to renew the strength of our way.
Mm-hmm.
And when you get older, you see the evolution of that, of what the seed of what, or the seedling of what we were experiencing, this joy when we were children. And then it just starts to encompass everything, you know, and that's one of the joys of getting older.
I love that, Maggie. It's really true. You know, as long as we're true to ourselves, it's just gets ever more beautiful.
Yeah.
Old age is not a bad thing in those circumstances. It's rich.
Poignant, but rich.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think you can feel the poignancy and the joy and the singing heart all at the same time. I think many, many, many things can be true.
For me, I found that when I was young, I knew I loved animals, and now I love.
Could you speak a little closer? I can barely hear you.
I think it's just the way the setup is, because I'm right into my speaker.
Oh, okay.
Maybe next time.
But we can hear you. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Well, when I was young, I knew I loved animals, and now that I'm in my late 50s, and by the way, I'm in Northern California as well, I found that I love giving. I love supporting the animal sanctuaries, and so I look to how can I simplify my life so that more of the funds that come into it can go out. And so as I think about that, I think about the more places that I can give to. Like my love would be to give 90% of my income to support marching, like Lynn talked about, because he's in China rescuing animals. for the animal sanctuaries like Noah's Ark in Tennessee or Anna because they have the fire in South Africa. So I love hearing what you all say because it reminded me of what my real love is, which is to get.
Completely unrelated, perhaps, but Hope mentioned to me yesterday that, yes, for those of you who know the story of Jill Robinson and her saving bears farming in China and Vietnam, yesterday was the 22nd year, 20 of the day that the bear touched her on her shoulder and changed her life. Changed the lives of many bears, for that matter.
Can you explain that story? I don't know that story.
I'll talk very quickly about it, but I have a whole interview with her on our website, on the podcast.
Okay.
You can hear it in great detail there. You can also look up Animals Asia, which is the name of her website. But basically, she was in China, and a journalist heard about bear bile farming, where they keep bears in crush cages where they're literally unable to move. And they have a catheter attached to their gallbladder, and then the bile drips into a container, and they consider it health, and they sell it in health food stores and medical applications. And she was visiting one of those and felt a touch on her shoulder and turned around in shock. And a bear had reached out to touch her on the back of her shoulder. And she said it was like lightning struck. Her life was changed in that minute. She had to help. And that bear just blinked at her and gently reached out a paw. And Jill, without thinking about the danger or anything else, put her hand in that bear's paw. And the bear gently squeezed her hand a few times while blinking gently. And that was it for Jill. So since then, this little white woman in China, along with many other people now, have saved over 600 bears, started to change the laws, made in Vietnam. They made a memorandum of understanding with the Vietnamese government that they're going to stop bear bile farming by 2022. But it was a bear reaching out and a woman receiving, and a woman, in a sense, a way that, like the story I told you about Jane earlier, that made a tremendous impact. And
it's powerful.
It's, when you read about it, she did it all with love, no aggression, no virulent activism, all compassion towards the humans as well as the bears, starting to change attitudes.
Mm-hmm.
But my belief is Jill had a bear touch her, and Jane had these experiences, and Cucumber nearly died and had another experience. My belief is that helps us cut through to reach what's really real and important for us and our gift that we can give. But so does connecting with what makes our hearts sing as a gentler way to be able to say, this is how I really need to live my life. What do I really need financially? Do I really need everything I think I need or I'm told I need? Do I really need this job? Do I really need to live this way? Is it too scary? Or might I actually be able to change to live more with what makes my life sing? That's one of my passions for myself, to live ever more that way and to do what I can to suggest to people that they too might open themselves more. And I don't mean in an arrogant way, because I'm sure there are many people who've done it much more than I. But I think it's a useful thing to share with one another, to support one another in that.
I would love to invite anyone who hasn't shared yet tonight to please do so, since we have about 10 minutes or so left, and we would love to hear from all of you.
I would like to say something, if you can, please.
Of course.
This is Jackie again from Big Sur, and it's in support of what you just said, Susan. Just there's many doors and ways to find that calling and to be guided to and to be guided along the path, that path, which you also made a comment that this woman was able to move from a place of love and understanding for the big picture of the situation when you were talking about the bears, rather than that place that gets all of us sometimes when you're really, you feel you have no way to be heard or to help. So thank you, because what you're doing is making it known to all of us and trying to stir this up inside of us to get to that place, rather than feeling you have no way to help. Rather, you're getting us to kind of stir up that idea that, yeah, there you have a way to get there. And these other doors that open. Last comment is that 20 minutes that woman took to quiet herself in nature or to be with nature, that is I truly believe, and from personal experience know, the key to allowing your own path to unfold is to deeply listen, And all these people who just love the earth, all these people on this call, that earth is supporting you in groundedness and rootedness. And those qualities are what let go of your intellect so that clarity from the inside can arise. So thank you.
Hello?
Yes.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, that's amazing. I'm not technological, and I just pressed something that I thought, because I'm on an old-fashioned phone. What I want to say about the bear, and I've heard that story, Susan, just extraordinary. In my view of the animals, that was not an animal. That was a master being using the form of a bear to take a message from spirit to earth to move this whole animal activism experience forward for the planet. And that's my feeling about the animals, that they are healers, they are teachers, they are avatars. And my sense is that's why they are dying, being murdered so torturously around the world in these horrific situations, because the powers that be, whoever they are or are not in tune with compassion, not in tune with their hearts. And anything that smacks of the light is a threat to them. And the animals, in my opinion, are nothing but light, nothing but love, and nothing but teachers. And I just have found, like the 100th monkey theory, more and more countries are stepping forth every day with animal rights activism in all different kinds of manners. And yeah, right. And we just have to hold that vision that with all of us growing in numbers, we're going to turn the corner, and that those who are committing these horrific acts of violence against these beautiful sentient beings can be swept up into the light, and they can have a sense that what they've been doing is so incorrect on so many levels, to the animals, to the planet, to the land, because as we've all been saying, we're one. We are one, you know.
I think that's so beautiful where your heart is coming from with all of that, and this idea that we are all one. I do want to come back to this idea, though, that each being is unique and powerful in their own right. And so I think we all have that light, and I think we all have the ability to be that master teacher to someone, to another being, for each other, to ourselves. And there's beauty in that too, of allowing that power for each being.
My comment is things are changing, and may we all contribute to make it happen even more.
Absolutely. Yes. Hmm. May I just, Chelsea, were you the one just speaking before Susan?
Yes.
Was that you? May I ask a question to you? I hope I didn't say anything which indicated that I was lumping every being together and that there was no individuality. Did that come across like that?
No. I was just expanding on what I interpreted from you were saying with the master teacher.
Right. And your point is that we're all capable of being master teachers, right?
Yes, I think we all have that power.
That's fantastic. You need to go to the White House and sit in Trump's chair and sign bills.
Well, I think it's a very personal journey for us to find it.
Right.
Yeah. Did anyone, we just have a few more minutes left. Did anyone else want to share for this evening?
Just wanted to celebrate again. It's all coming together. It creates an alchemical effect that we can't even begin to imagine. That so many people caring so deeply come together and send all our light out into the world and love.
Thank you, Maggie. On that note, if no one else has anything to say, Chelsea, you want to take it away?
Yes. Well, so again, thank you for being here. It's so, for me, I think I've said this before, but it's like, I recharge every time we get to come together and discuss and really go deep. And what makes my soul sing is connection, and that's exactly what we're doing here in these conversations. So we're so thankful for all of you to join us, and it wouldn't be anything without you all. So we hope to see you in the future. The next conversation is May 16th. It's the third Wednesday in May, again at 6 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. But to keep up to date with all the things we have happening, as this was just the kickoff of our Council of All Beings, there's a lot going on in this whole learning journey that we have planned. So join our newsletter to stay in touch. But I will send out a thank you email with the recording. So on that note, Susan, unless you have anything else, thank you all so much, and we'll see you next time.
I'll do this just for the fun of it one more time. Good night, everybody.
Good night. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.